even the environmentalists who just think they want to save the planet for the animals other than humans, and they want just the like VHMEMT that wants to get rid of just humans. I don't really. A lot of people have a problem with that, but I really don't, because in the end, as far as the voluntary part, it's only humans that are going to be taking it into consideration anyway. The animals aren't, and so I'm thinking. Yeah, why not, man? Let's play. I'll play the game with them, and in the end, I'll leave a little, surprise for the animals, and wipe out the biosphere or something if we ever get that far. But I'm all for it. Yeah, let's save the animals, man. Let's get rid of the human race. I mean, at least it's a fucking start, and at least it's. I mean, pigs aren't going to be volunteering to stop procreating, so not in the near future anyway.
Yeah, well, I don't think you can look at it that way. I mean, animals are obviously the retarded versions of us. So you don't sit there and say, okay, for the benefit of these elite humans, we will understand the futility of the game and not force them into the servitude of the game, and let's leave all the retards behind to eat their own ass, suffer, and die. I mean, why the fuck would I do that? So I mean. That's why I use the word ephilism, because I'm not anti-natalist, just to save a few human beings the grief of having to realize the futility of their existence personally. I mean, obviously it's the futility of this chase game, this idiotic DNA molecule run amok, that's been eating its own fucking kind, its own ass, for millions of years. I mean, that's what's got to stop. I mean, I'm not going to leave great apes, on this earth to fuck each other over and mass murder each other. Why the hell would I do that? That's the definition of failure. If I've killed all the humans, metaphorically, if I've eradicated the human genome, I haven't done the planet Earth any favor in terms of sentient life.
Well, I kind of see the practical aspect of antinatalism kind of coming in stages. I mean, first of all, you're talking about seducing people into the idea and voluntary actions taken in that direction, and there's nothing with that part of the game that goes against the people who believe we should save Earth for the animals. Then later on down the road, when that philosophy or that feeling kind of takes hold in humanity, then we can talk about the other part, the part where
that's why I think I'm a lot more aggressive than you are, in the sense that, let's take the slavery argument, for example. I mean, I would certainly argue, you could sit there, somebody would argue, I don't personally own slaves, you shouldn't personally own slaves. And then you can make the argument that, well, it doesn't mean shit if we don't do it and those other assholes are still doing it, so we got to stop those fuckers. I mean, that was still part of the argument. Part of the argument was, no, we got to abolish slave ownership. And, I'm not saving, I can't rescue animals from this in servitude of petitude. Why should animals be subjected to being a pet, right? I mean, I can't stop it by personally choosing not to have a pet. I have to stop it by forcing other people to stop wanting to do this shit. I mean, either stop wanting to do it or I'm going to stop you from doing it, but that's my plan. My plan is not to sit there and say it's okay that you're forcing something to serve your bullshit. Again, because I can't stop it by my own, I can't just say I'm going to let go of it and it's all done and solved. No, it's only solved if I force them to let go of it. And if they're still producing the Frankenstein monsters, I haven't solved the Frankenstein problem.
Well, I see what you're saying. I just think that, I mean, before we talk about doing anything, we've got to actually get some kind of momentum going within society. And I think that's probably something that's done in stages. And the first thing is just what you and I talk about a lot, is awareness of the problem and getting that across to people. And that's going to translate, first of all, into people deciding not to have children on their own. And then the rest of the argument about life as a whole and the whole fucking biosphere is, I think, a little further down the road as far as people's practical concerns are. But I'm really, I mean, look, I make no bones about it. My secret, not so secret wish is that a couple of really brilliant madmen glom onto my philosophy and come up with some kind of a plan to sterilize the fucking earth. And I mean, but you know, there's in between steps, I guess, is what I'm saying.
I understand, but that's why I would disagree. It's almost like the atheism argument that I think there's a harder, straighter line, and I'm just saying I think it's almost more practical to go with the underlying understanding. If you have the underlying understanding is that this is a function of the DNA molecule. This is a function of the chemistry that's broken, because all it's doing is this consuming, reproducing, cannibalizing through addiction. So I mean, it's this simple bad formula of, like, they're playing a game, and you can see the pawns getting wiped out, and the knights getting wiped out, and the bishops getting wiped out, and they all just keep getting wiped out, and they just keep replacing these pieces, putting a new pawn on, and you got to ask the question, why are they playing the game? We can see it all ends in failure. Why play the game? And that question why can never be answered rationally. There's no rational affirmative action for why. The only why is because I wanted to. Well, that's I think we can make want a bogus concept, because your want has to have some reason behind it. There has to be some other purpose being satisfied besides a notion in your head, besides a desire in your body. You have to come up with some explanation of how there's a purpose served, and that's the real fundamental lacking. And that's I'm just saying that fundamental philosophy underlies both the animal argument and the human argument. And I think, like, again, I'm just going to argue that 99.9999% of the pain and suffering is being endured by non-humans.
I think about that a lot, and I don't really know how to work out the numbers on that. I suppose you're right just by sheer numbers, although then I also ask myself questions regarding quality of suffering, because I think depth of consciousness somehow equates with quality of suffering, depth of suffering, if you will. And so I'm pretty convinced that human beings probably suffer, I guess, both on an individual basis and in the aggregate, more than any other animals, just by because of the quality of the depth of our consciousness. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I think it might be the opposite in terms of actual sensation and the burdens of those sensations and the will. Okay, because they're like, you know,
Really?
they're fight through it through ignorance alone. You know what I mean? So yes, the ignorance gives them the advantage if they don't get discouraged, or, you know, they don't get over hysterical. They don't do all that other stuff that we're capable of that makes, you know, that just compounds our suffering because of the dismalness of it. We can make it really, 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 really dark. But if you look at what they're capable of sensing, you know what I'm saying? They're, you know, for our intelligence is probably compromising the intensity of our actual passions. So I guess, you know, I'd say if you saw some, like, retarded kids, you can see the passion in them. All right, they're stupid, but their passion is intense. Okay, and the profoundly retarded even more. You know what I'm saying? They're like animals, and it's visceral and it's strong. You know, and when they're afraid, they're terrified. You know, when they're, you know, happy, they're, you know, delirious. I mean, it's, you know, and it's that intensity that gives me the sense that, you know, it's nice to think that you need this intellectual context. Maybe not. You know, and I don't, you know, it's hard for me to say what's worse. I mean, being afraid of a thing you don't understand, just feeling the emotion of it, or being afraid and understanding. I mean, how do I really dissect that and say that, well, it's worse to know? Well, maybe it's worse not knowing.
I don't know. That's a really interesting question. I'm glad to hear your take on it. I kind of have always assumed that I suppose, well, I just went through this thing with my dog the last couple months, and her suffering, I know she was suffering. She didn't seem particularly fearful of it, though, and she seemed to take it, I don't want to say in stride, but do you know what I mean? She kind of accepted it. She seemed to accept it and didn't overreact, I guess I would say, like people would. Our suffering seems to go so much into the abstract. We suffer all the time. I don't know, we're so wired to react physiologically against dangers that we end up experiencing psychologically. And we end up in these end games where we know we can't win. I mean, I could run away. I'm wired physically with a fight or flight response just like everyone else. I can run away from something, and the adrenaline rushes up, and then I either fight or I get away, and then the adrenaline goes down, and everything is kind of back down to normal. And that's the level that animals operate on. But with people, I mean, my body tells me to run away from the fact that I don't make enough money and I may be living out on the street from month to month. And yet, I can't just run away from that. I live with it on a daily and a monthly and a yearly basis. It eats me up inside constantly. And I think for most people, there are 100 things internalized like this, escapes that we just can't accomplish, that animals don't know, the kind of thing that animals don't experience at almost.
I know, but they do. They're paranoid all the time, right? I mean, you know, I see it with these cats, right? I mean, they're always paranoid. They come to the dish paranoid. They're worried about where the other male cats are. Where's this guy? What's happening here? You know, they're living in that kind of fear thing, so they definitely have that. And then when they're dying, they're even more paranoid because now they feel their compromised state. And, I've seen some, I've been up and close and personal with animals dying. And, they have this forlorn look on their face. I mean, they're, choking up blood and shit, and they don't know what the fuck's going on. And you can see they're fucking scared. You can see they're, why am I broken? That you almost see them saying that. What the fuck is wrong here? Fix it. Do something. So I don't, and they can see that, you can see anticipation. You can see when they know this is their lot, and yeah, I don't know. I just don't buy the argument that it's necessarily easier. They're just toughened by the fact that they don't know anything but to move forward. They know they have to keep going. That's all. They definitely have the, they don't have the context of, I have a roof over my head, I don't have to worry about this, I don't have, you know what I mean? They don't have those contexts, so they have to always defend from the position of, if you're hungry, you got to eat.
Makes me wonder about, as you go lower down the evolutionary chain, what suffering is to, insects, for instance. I don't know, maybe even plants, I don't know.
Well, come on, don't do the plant thing. I'll have to hit you in the head. It doesn't have a brain, Morph, come on, there's no brain. You gotta have a brain to feel. Yeah, but the insect...
I don't know if that's true or not.
Well, I think it is, quite obviously. I mean, I think unconsciousness, we understand that we're not conscious when we're unconscious, and we understand that it's a very delicate circumstance that keeps us functioning intellectually, and our capacity to feel is, my arm doesn't, I cut my arm off, my arm doesn't go, ouch, I'm disconnected from the body, I fucked up, I don't know what's going on. No, it doesn't do any of that shit because it's got no fucking brain.